This is your place for all things Grand Rapids Griffins and all things Toledo Walleye. This is the Hockeytown West podcast with your hosts, Brandon Cook, Nick Harrington, and Travis Foch.
Well, it is that time again for another Walleye playoff preview, but this time we brought a special guest along for the ride to walk us through what to expect and what they think is going to happen. We're going to welcome to the show Mark Monroe of the Toledo Blade. Mark, welcome back.
Hey.
How have you been? How has the season been treating you?
Good. I was saying before we went on air here that it kind of seemed like it flew by. I mean, there were, you always have those dog days in December and, into January, more of that, January, February. But then all of a sudden it got really tight at the end. And I think it's been really interesting to see how it worked out. Now we're ready to go. This is what it's all about. You guys know that. Nothing better than playoff hockey. And around here, 10 years in a row, seems like trips to the Western Conference Finals are routine too. So, I'm ready to go. It should be hopefully in another good long run.
Amen to that. But before we get started going into playoffs, we got to acknowledge that there was 2 games that we haven't done a recap of yet, since this is kind of a lot quicker than it happens up here in Grand Rapids. You guys don't get a nice week off like we do up here. So we have time to prep for a playoff preview there. But Trav, kind of walk me through these last couple games of the season and what did you see? We'll throw it between you and Mark because I didn't get to watch any of these, unfortunately.
Yeah, just a 4-1 win at Fort Wayne and a 5-2 win at home versus Wheeling. They needed to win both games to even have a shot at the division. And I thought that they got back to playing the way they played for 3/4 of the season up until like that last month. I know that last month really was like tough with letting in, 3-4 goals a night, and they got back to getting to sub 3. And I think that was the big thing. They cleaned up their own end. And just really, if they can carry that momentum into the next, into the postseason, I think is the biggest thing, but just improve play overall.
Yeah, Mark, I'll throw this to you. How big is it to beat Fort Wayne and Wheeling at the last 2 games of the season when potentially those are 2 playoff teams you could face?
Yeah, especially getting the new guys back down from GR and to get those. And Pat was mentioning how he likes where they slotted in, and he gave he said they gave him juice, and you could see it. I think Travis would agree that those are 2 of the better games they've put together, certainly in the last couple months, and that bodes well. I know I talked to the guys at practice yesterday, and they thought that was huge, just to build a little momentum, get the confidence back, and I thought they played good in all phases. They like Travis said, they were must-win situations, and they won both of them. Never easy to go to Fort Wayne and win, and we know that Wheeling team, they're going to be the team to beat, I think, in the other side. So 2 quality wins, and I think it bodes well. And then it ended up on that Sunday where we're watching Fort Wayne and Kalamazoo to see. I don't ever remember a division title. Unfortunately, they kind of had that slide late in the season where it was out of their hands whether they were going to win the division title, needed some help. And of course, you guys know it didn't work out that way. I thought it was going to tie and that they possibly could play Kalamazoo, but they wouldn't win the division. But as it works out, they have Bloomington, and I think, as we said, they're playing well heading in here to the postseason.
Yeah, I think it's going to be nice to see a new opponent first round. I know Travis always likes to get the revenge stories, but I'm excited to face a new team. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves there, Trav, just any other final thoughts before we talk about this playoff roster?
No, not really. Just I love that they, essentially treated both of those as like a game 7 and won both of them. That's probably the biggest thing, is they knew they had to win both, and they got back to their identity and played much better. And I, like Mark said, to build some optimism for the playoffs is a big thing. So all about confidence going into this time of the year.
Especially for this young group. That makes total sense. Well, let's talk about the playoff roster. That's, I think, the first thing that everyone's going to want to hear about and hear our thoughts on here. Travis, take it away, man.
Yeah, everybody, kind of probably read the articles and the releases. Pretty standard, I think, to what everybody thought potentially it would look like as you kind of went down the stretch. Really, the big shocker is that Conlon Keenan, unfortunately, not on the playoff roster. That's obviously a really tough one. And the other 2 cuts were Jack Duff and Nolan Hutchison. It's tough, right? He's been here for a few years as a fan favorite. He's a big voice in that room. I hope he stays around, right? That's the one thing you noticed last year with some of the guys that weren't playing. Like Chaz was around for the whole entirety of the run. Like I hope Keenes at least sticks around and is a part of it, because I'm sure that the organization would, love to have him around still. And the player is what I'm sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
for
know,
sure.
Mark, you talked with Hawk yesterday about this and just he had a pretty good quote on that.
Yeah, he called him his brother. I mean, they're like best friends. They've played together for 5 seasons now. Keenes is that's the toughest part of this business, is when you see a guy. I mean, nobody cares more about walleye hockey than Conlon Keenan. And I remember one year he broke his jaw, and just what the amount of that they go through. But yeah, Hawk was disappointed, but understanding that it's part of the business. He called him his brother, and like Travis said, I knowing Keenes, I imagine he'll stick around and root the boys on. And it's just tough, because he's a glue guy, and those are the tough decisions that had to be made. And it's just hard when a guy like that gets left off. But I think they got a pretty good group here to go forward with.
Yeah,
and
I
like,
agree.
Like the other big one is that I've seen a lot of chatter about is that Christopher Brown never did report, and that did suck. But at the end of the day, like I was kind of sitting down, like going through that whole transaction last night, and I you look at some of the guys that came in and replaced the guys that left. Like, do you want Funk or do you want Hillman? Like, do you want like a Psychos, or do you want a Pietel? If Psychos plays on the right side, he's got the right shot. That was an area of need, right? So like when you start to break it down, it's like, yeah, they gave up a lot and didn't get the one player, but you get Garrett Van Wy, and he's become a very big part of that team in that locker room. I know, Mark, you've talked to him. He's just like a great vibe, good person, great, wants to win. That's probably the biggest thing.
That's a good way to put it. Definitely a high energy guy, just a good personality, and he came in, produced right away. And you have to give up pieces to get pieces. And I like Colby Ambrosio and Hillman. I don't know that either of them would have made this roster, though, as it turned out, to be honest with you. And the whole Chris Brown situation, I think it's disappointing. It's happened here before, where 1 year Dan Watson traded away his leading scorer, I think in December, Eric Bradford, for a defenseman with Brampton, and the kid never came and reported to Toledo. So it's not unprecedented. Usually you have some type of gentleman's agreement, before a trade is made, that the guy's going to report. But the way this one played out was different on Brown's part, because he got a chance to play in the AHL, and you can't fault anybody for wanting to make more money and playing at the higher level. Combine that with he got to play with Lincoln on the team, Travis.
Providence.
Yeah, thanks.
Which, they're a top team in the league.
Mhm.
Like they
The
won
top team.
the top team in the league. So like all the more reason to you get the opportunity, go take advantage of it, right? Like we said it before, like it sucks because of the circumstance, but like you should be just as excited. I know he never came here, but you should still be excited for him to have that opportunity at this point in his career. Like, sucks he never came, but I guess that's an opportunity for him to, go play with his brother and play in a bigger league, like you said.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, they're poised for a deep playoff run too, so that makes total sense. Another surprising thing, Travis, that you brought up this week was that Louis, he's good to go for game one. I think Mark reported it as well. And it's if you watch the injury he sustained live, you go, there's no way. But Mark, he looked good in practice.
Yeah, he was moving real well. He did have the red jersey on, no contact jersey, but he was participating fully in drills. Now, I wasn't at practice today. They were over at Tam O'Shanter. They have a concert, or a comedian that Jeff Dunham's at the Huntington Center tonight, so they had to move practice. But all indications were Lewandowski was going to be good to go for game one, and that's huge. I mean, that was one of the weirdest hits, just situations there, and a lot of the fans were up in arms, claiming. I don't know if you're familiar, Brandon, what happened. He hit into through the door there on the bench, and I really think it was an accident. And the other, they maybe there could have been a interference call on it, but it was terrible the way it worked out. There was no suspensions or anything like that. So I'm just so happy that he's okay, because he's Travis, he's another one of those guys. He's just like a spark plug, a producer. He's got speed, skill, everything you expect out of a walleye player these days. So having him back in the lineup is going to be a big boost.
Yeah, and like I remember when I watched the hit back, like from the side angle, it was just like, And I seen him in passing on the way out last weekend, and I said to him, I'm like, dude, I don't even know how you're not on crutches right now. Because I was like, dude, when the replay comes, you just see you fall into the boards, and your leg just kept going, and then it just whiplashes back, and it like I said to Brandon, I'm like, honestly, it looked like a cooked noodle, like a spaghetti noodle. Like it just it looked horrendous.
It did.
But like you said, I mean, to have him healthy and ready to go in game one, that's a huge piece to where 2 weeks ago you thought maybe you wouldn't even have him at all. So very huge development in the last couple of weeks that he was, good to get healthy and good to go.
I think it makes up too for not getting Doucette back down for those to qualify, right? Like if you were going to lose Louis and not get Doucette, it really sucked, but it eases the sting of that a little bit.
Well, just to get any help, right? Like I don't think anybody was expecting the forwards to come down, and then all of a sudden you get this influx, and Doucette kind of played his way off of coming down the last couple of weeks up in GR. He played really well down the stretch, but like the last home game, I think, was Milne's best game since he joined the team. And of the 5 games he played, he looked the most comfortable. And and Bantle, I mean,
he's just a freight train, man.
He's a freight train. And like I've said it, I know I said it, I think on the last show. I don't know how the lineup's going to shake up, but I just want to see at one point Bantle, Funk, and Hausinger all on the ice at the same time. Like it would just be maximum chaos out there. But
that's some good grit there. Bantle's just his size, but he also has that skill. I think he scored a big goal in one of those 2 games coming back.
The wheeling one.
Yeah. Well, having him back is enormous, and we sure wish Deuce could have joined again, but good for him if he's going to get a chance to see some time up there with the Griffins. Good for him. But it's good to have because like you said, Travis, I don't think they were really counting on it. It was kind of they needed the 2 games. They sent them just the night before to get the 2 games in. They got them in, and now they're eligible and they're on the roster. And I was at practice yesterday. It seemed like it's a real loose group. It just seemed like the chemistry already seemed there. I mean, everybody was high spirits and joking around. And I think the way it's coming together, I think it's going to all bode well.
It's such a good sign to see that too, because we know up in Grand Rapids what a room like that will do for you on the ice. So to see them being like that heading into the playoffs, especially like we've said, this group is so much younger than what we've seen in the past too. It's nice to see the relaxed and just ready to go. And you just hope that they can, if they face any adversities in the playoffs, they can respond appropriately.
Well, one thing too, and Mark, I know you talked to Pat about it, was just like the size that they inherited this year throughout the season, and how it's a little bit different than past years, and getting some bigger bodies to come in and, hopefully be an impact. But I think that's one thing that like Pat went out and found some bigger frames, and then obviously got Bantle late to even add more to it. So like the size thing is officially dead. I think they definitely brought in the size.
Thank
that's
God.
for
sure. No, I mean, rightfully so. The fan base has been chomping at the bit for physicality, because we've seen other teams use it to the Walleye's detriment in the playoffs, where they've got out muscled at times with the smaller forward groups. And it'll be nice to have those couple guys that you mentioned already, but I really like Funk's size is really great at the center position, and like you said, Bantle, but Van Wy is a bigger body too. Yeah, I just think they're going to be bigger than they have in many playoff years. So it'll be, I think they heard the cries are just, you learn that along the way that you need a little more balance, a little more grit, somebody that's going to stand up. Like Hausinger's not one of the big guys, but certainly he plays big in spirit, I guess. He's a
ball of hate sometimes.
Yes, a little ball of hate, right? Exactly. Love it.
Yeah, and then the other thing, I believe, Mark, you said that Gylander was going to start game 1.
Yeah, Pat confirmed that, and he didn't make a full commitment on a rotation, but I think it makes sense. His quote was, the playoffs hopefully are a long trip, so you need to have rest along the way. And his brief history of the last 2 years, he loved the rotation, and I think Islander's the number one. I still think what he did last year, he had a pretty nice playoffs last year, and to have that experience alone is big. And then I think he said that we'll see how it goes in game one. Now, if he gets a shutout, why would you not go with him on Saturday? But
right.
I think he played his last game was one of his best games, and he seems to feel pretty locked in. So yeah, he'll start Thursday in game one, and then we'll go from there.
Can you foresee a rotation of all three since they did keep Nolan on reserve?
I don't know. That's tough, right? I mean, you can't.
Yeah.
You're risking getting a guy out of a rhythm. I would see more of a 1-2. I wouldn't rule it out. Like Pat said, it's nice that they changed the playoff roster rule from 24 to 25, which allows teams to carry a third. And the way the situation works out, two of these guys are AHL affiliated. So if something would happen, you never know. That's the East Coast. You never know. Injuries happen above you. You're going to lose guys. And certainly you don't want to have a rely on an E-bug as your backup in the playoffs. So,
well, at least we know in Grand Rapids they probably won't need them since they have 3 now too. But Cleveland, yeah, that could get interesting. We'll see how deep they go in the playoffs as well. Let's kind of talk about Toledo versus Bloomington, what the season series has looked like. I know, Trav, you pulled some stats for us, and just kind of what we expect to see between these two teams.
Yeah, so head-to-head, they went 5-2-2 against Bloomington. You take out the overtime losses, they went 5-2, and that's a pretty good record against the team, right? You almost have to take the overtime and shootout losses and wins away and just kind of go off regulation because it's 5-on-5 in the playoffs all the way till there's a winner. You look at the goals for Toledo was 4th in the league at 3.91, and Bloomington was 11th at 3.11. The goals against Toledo was 8th at 2.75, and Bloomington was 16th at 3.04. The power play, this is what's crazy, right? Toledo at 29.9%, first in the ECHL, and only a 0.6% off of the Edmonton Oilers for the best power play in professional hockey in North America. Just absolutely crazy.
I knew you'd have that stat, Travis.
Yeah,
that's the best power play in all of hockey, which around here, we know we've been spoiled by some really effective power play units, but Brett Baines really got him clicking, and I think McCourt back there, and just obviously Hawkins. I can't believe we haven't brought up Brandon Hawkins. But
we'll get there.
Yeah, of course. But yeah, no, I mean, I'll let you get back to the breakdown, but I think statistically there's a clear advantage on the Walleye's part.
Yes, and then Bloomington 16th at 17.9%, and then the penalty kill Toledo was 84.7% for 7th in the league, and Bloomington at 79.5. But yeah, if you can have special teams like that in the playoffs, you're gonna do some damage, right? And I think their 5-on-5 play, like we've seen it, Mark, to where they'll get off to good starts one night, and then some nights they start slow and they're chasing it, and it takes about halfway through until they get the game tied. It's finding that whole 60 minutes, I think, is the biggest thing. And I thought the last 2 games of the regular season, like we touched on, they got a lot better at that as a whole.
Yeah, and the playoff hockey, you guys know, comes down to usually special teams, goaltending, and yeah, I mean, just Sam Craggs had a good quote, just saying that you got to make them pay if they make a mistake and take a penalty, you make them pay. And he said it makes other teams play a more straight up against them. We talked about the post whistle and all that stuff. And hopefully it'll get teams to play a little more honest with them. And if they don't, then the Walleye have proven they can make you pay.
Yeah, it's such a huge benefit to have such a strong power play, because if you just have a weak power play, teams take a penalty, they kill it off. They're just building momentum every single time they do that. So if there's that constant fear that this team can be as lethal as they are, it's only going to help, the game stay settled. But at the same time, when they get those opportunities, they should be able to make them pay.
And the PK is huge too, Travis, because it's been solid. Penalties are going to happen. You know what I mean? Especially when the intensity is ramped up. You're going 150 miles an hour. Stick penalties, or just stuff in action penalties are going to happen. And if you can avoid getting penalized, so to speak, by taking penalties, and that's going to bode well too.
Well, and it's funny, like you mentioned the intensity ramping up, and I have the Flyers and the Penguins on, and there's 10 guys in the penalty box right now. And that seems like that's been a thing this year across every playoff series in the NHL. There's been a lot more of like the post whistle scrums, a lot more in your face. And that's where you go back to talking about a power play to where, like, if you can, I guess you could say, bait a team into taking a stupid penalty, and then you make them pay, like they were saying, like that's a huge advantage to have. So definitely want to play it whistle to whistle, but if you can, get a power play out of something, like if you're, not the one to retaliate, because generally it's the second guys that go. So you want to be the ones to kind of just stand there and take it. I know the fans hate that.
Hate it.
But, if you can bait them into a penalty and then you score on the power play, that's the big reward out of it. But
yeah, 100%. Before we kind of dive in, Travis, to the players to watch that you had pulled aside here for us, just looking at Bloomington, right? This is their second season in the league and they make the playoffs. Mark, you've been covering this league for quite a while. Like, what kind of accomplishment is that for a brand new team like this?
Yeah, no, that's a pretty big deal when you're building from scratch. I mentioned here early in the podcast about how the Walleye struggled, or maybe that was before we went on, but the first couple of years, it wasn't 10 years in a row when they started. I think the Walleye missed 3 of the first 4 years where you're trying to establish something. And yeah, for sure. They've had the same coach. I was just looking at his record in 2 years. Philip Arski is 68, 65, and 11 in 2 seasons. They missed last year, but they went, 7-3-0 down the stretch to get in. So they're playing good hockey. They got some help from their AHL affiliate. I think they didn't make the playoffs. So right. So they got those players down, and it's a significant accomplishment, and I'm assuming they won't be satisfied just with getting in. I mean, you were mentioning the head-to-head records. Now Toledo went 1-2 at their place, so I think these first 2 games they went 4-2 against them here at home. So I think getting these two games are big to keep home ice and maybe get them done early out there.
Yeah, that's always a big thing. Brandon, like you said, or Mark, you said, they got a couple guys back. If you want to jump into the rosters a little bit, like the big one that stands out is Kyle Jackson. Like he's the big one they got back. 8 games played, 17 goals, 27 assists, 44 points. So he only played like just about half the year and had well over a point per game. He's a big one. Shane Ott had 46 points in 69 games. Benny Gord had 20 goals this year for them, at 49 points in 66 games. Then I feel like the one that's always on the score sheet when they play Toledo is Eddie Matsushima. I feel like he always plays well against Toledo. And then the big defenseman on the back end, Nikita Zedov. He had a great year, 59 points in 68 games played. So very talented guy on the blue line for them. But the big one's Kyle Jackson. Getting him back, that's a boost for that lineup over there. So definitely going to be some guys to keep an eye on.
And their goalie, I think, in talking to Mick yesterday, that Dryden McKay has had some good games against them. So they know it's not going to be a cakewalk. They know that he's a pretty good goalie. And like you mentioned, that Shane Ott, that rookie, had a great year, and Sedov is what you said. And yeah, I think but then you look at the Walleyes roster. So I mean, I think it looks like statistically things seem to favor the Walleye, but it's playoff hockey, guys.
Yeah, you start at 0, right? And you mentioned Dryden McKay, 41 games played, 918 save percentage, and a 2.52 goals against average. And then they got Callum Tongue back from, was it Hartford, right, Brandon?
Yes,
Rangers affiliate. Yep. He had a 907 save percentage with a 3.10 goals against average, which, if you remember, Brandon, when we talked about Toledo signing Matt, he had the over 3 goals against average coming out of the KHL, but the over 900 save percentage. So anytime your save percentage is above that 900 number, it's solid, especially when you're giving up 3 a night. But, that's the Bloomington side of it. And then you look at Toledo. I mean, everybody that listens knows the big ones, right? Hawk, Dickinson, Kelly, Louie, McCourt. Those are kind of your big point guys this year. And then in net, the 3-headed monster that's kind of been the rotation all year. Is there a guy, Mark, for you that on the Toledo side you think is poised to have a breakout playoff run?
You mentioned Tanner Dickinson. I've followed this kid's career since he was in high school. He he went through it. He got drafted, and then he broke his femur, which is probably the worst bone. I mean, that's the biggest bone in your body, and had to recover from that. And I know his work ethic has been there, and obviously the skill. It's really cool when a local kid makes it, an impact on the local team. And I think he's gonna have. I think he started to heat up again later. And we mentioned Louis and Tanner Kelly. I mean, TK as a rookie coming in, I think he's matured and he's been pretty steady with his production. Watch for those two. And I think Van Wy is one of those guys that could come in and obviously Hawkins, guys. I can't say enough about what he's meant to this team, both on and off the ice. He's a great ambassador. But I listened to your podcast the other day with Nolan, and he made a good point about how facing him and the other guys we've mentioned makes the goaltenders better too. Iron sharpens iron, that kind of thing. And I think that really is a significant thing that maybe people don't think about. I mean, they're getting well prepared by having to face these guys every day in practice.
Yeah, that was a really cool piece from Nolan there to kind of hear like his thoughts and how they pick each other's brains. One picks the brain to, figure out what the shooter's going to do, and the shooters are trying to get inside the goalie's head. It was really cool.
That was.
Is there a guy for you, Brandon, that, is that kind of potential breakout playoff candidate?
Mark took mine. It was Dickinson. I'm really excited to see what he can do in the playoffs here. I think that first goal for him in the playoffs at the Huntington Center is going to go extremely hard. I think the emotion's going to come out from him there. That'll be his first career pro playoff goal when he gets that, and he's going to get to do it at home. That's going to be a really cool thing to see in person, hopefully on Saturday. And he stuck out for me. And I mean, you can't go wrong with, talking about Louis and what he's going to be able to potentially do for this team in the playoffs. But I think the piece that I really want to see jump off the page for the playoffs for this team is going to be Bantle. I want to see him at an extremely high level to hopefully play his way back into Grand Rapids next season. That's my goal right there for him.
I think for me, mine's Riley Funk. The big center. You've seen it down the stretch. He got some, extra opportunity. The game in Cincinnati was put on the power play. I said to Kels, obviously, before Bance came back, of like, put Riley Funk in front of the net and good things are going to happen. He's just so big. He's got good hands. He's really good in the face-off dot, too. He's that big physical guy. Like, you talk about face-offs a lot, and I know, Brandon, we talk about it a lot with, like, on the Griffin side of things, like, they've gone through their struggles. Toledo has as well, right? And you talk about, like, I've always said, like, face-off's a big strength and leverage thing for me. You're a bigger guy that's strong. Like, that's only going to help you and benefit you when it comes to the face-offs. And I remember when we all saw Riley Funk come in at 6'3", 235, we were like, that's a grown man coming out of college. That's not a, like a 22-year-old coming out that started at 18. So I think for him, his physical plays there, it's just one of those things that I think he could have a big playoff.
You make a tremendous point about the face-offs and the success there. It was something they struggled with, like you said early, and I think that's really solidified that. Just gaining possession. I mean, that's a huge part of the game. I talked to Sam Craggs about it, who has been great in the circle, and it's just an enormous. I think I might actually read a story on just how important face-off wins are, and Dickinson has been good. And Funk has just been. That's the one thing that almost as much as his size has stood out as his success in the circle.
Yeah. And it's one thing too, it's very interesting, Mark. I remember it was the Wheeling game at home and the face-off was on the right side of the ice. And Dickinson was out there with Hausinger on his right, and they had a face-off on the left side, and the puck got iced, and that same group stayed out there, but the face-off was on the right side. And Hausinger's taking the face-off because it's on his strong side. So, and that ability, like you said, I think it was in your article, like they went out and got guys that multiple guys can take face-offs now. And that's really helped them in the last few months. So, you talk about winning face-offs and how important it is. Like if you're in the offensive zone and you win the face-off, you've got the possession time going, right? Like you got the puck, you don't have to chase it or try to get it back. So that's one thing I think that kind of goes underappreciated at times is just the ability to win a face-off. I mean, look at last year. Was it Billy Moskal when he came in from college? He was their best face-off guy. Like in the playoffs, he was their go-to guy.
Yeah, it's going to be fun to see. You'll have to let us know in the comments, listeners, who you are looking for a breakout playoff season here with the team. Be curious to hear your guys' thoughts. We're going to hit a quick ad break. When we come back, talk about the keys to the series, give you the schedule update, give you the playoff picture around the entire ECHL.
No sport flips faster than hockey. One power play, a goalie pulled with 2 minutes left, and everything changes. DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL, is built for that kind of chaos. With live betting from puck drop to the final buzzer, yet DraftKings has your back with early exit protection. If you place a pregame player prop bet and your player starts the game but leaves in the first period due to injury and doesn't return, you'll get your bet back in cash. No bonus bets, no opt-in, just real protection when injuries happen early. Sportsbook customers bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code THPN so you're ready for the moment. That's code THPN. Turn $5 into $300 in bonus bets if your bet wins. In partnership with DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or 1-800-MY-RESET. New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. Connecticut, call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino in Kansas, wager tax pass-through may apply in Illinois. 21 and over in most states. Void in Ontario. Restrictions apply. Bet must win to receive bonus bets which expire in 7 days. Minimum odds required. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see sportsbook.draftkings.com/promos. Limited time offer.
And welcome back. All right, let's dive into the keys to the series. And Travis, you had some notes put out here, but I'm kind of curious before we dive into your thoughts. Just Mark, what do you think the biggest keys for success in the series
I
is going
think
to be for Walleye?
we've kind of touched on a little bit, but I think winning the games here at home, game one is big. Win your protect home ice, win the specialty teams battle, and as I kind of alluded to earlier, is goaltending. I mean, I'd love to see Guylander elevate his game even more, and I think he has the potential to do that. I guess those are the 3 aspects I think you need to win, and just getting off to a good start is going to be a key.
Yeah, I would shadow Mark on what he just said and only really add that, ramp up that intensity a little bit. You see it like with what happens every year at this time of the year. Like, it's funny. I remember listening to Spit and Chicklets at one point. It was Ryan Whitney talking about like his first playoff when he was with Pittsburgh, and they got outshot like 20-0 in the first period. And like, he's like, when he went to his first game as a kid, he's like asked his dad, he's like, why don't they play like this all year? And he was like, because they'd be dead by December. So like just that intensity and then playing with that blue collar mentality. I know, Mark, you've heard that a lot from, especially Hawks said that quite a bit over the years, playing with that blue collar mentality and just put your work boots on and go to work.
And to follow up on that or extend on that thought, as Hawk was specifically talking about taking care of the defensive end. A lot falls on the goaltenders, but you can have a lot of help if they play sound defense and focus on that, getting the puck out and then go from there. And, just playing smart. And I don't know how many I heard it from everybody I talked to yesterday, is as long as they stick to their style, play their style the way they know they can. And like you said, for a full 60 minutes, it's simple to say these things. It's another thing to follow through. I mean, and then the goaltending, I mean, we'll see what happens on the other end. But yeah, the defense, it's a whole team effort.
All right. Well, what's the schedule looking like? Because I know, at least in the ECHL, every round's best of 7. Thank you, AHL, for the chaos. But Travis, what's the schedule looking like for these guys?
So you got game 1, obviously, this Thursday. Game 2 is Saturday. Then they go to Bloomington for 3 because they do the 2-3-2 format. Monday, Wednesday, Friday next week. And then game 6 and 7 would be the following week on Sunday and Tuesday. So, you hope you don't need game 6 and 7, but you never know, right? Anything could happen. But
I was going to say, what's your guys' predictions?
I think the Walleye win in 5.
I could see 5, but I'm going to go 6. And this is why I just think, like Mark, you said, they struggled a little bit over in Bloomington. So if they were to, have a stumble at home, that puts a little more pressure on them to go over there and play even better. So, I feel like Bloomington's going to be, a little tough. It's their first playoff. Like you said, I could see them, they're not going to roll over, right? Everybody wants to win, and they made the playoffs for a reason. So, would love to see 5 though. Or even 4. The shorter, the better this time of the year, the less games you got to play.
Yeah. I don't see a sweep necessarily, but the Walleye have played really well on their road. I think you guys have talked about it on the podcast before. They almost sometimes seem looser. Just I don't know. They actually had more wins on the road than they did at home this year, so they're not afraid to go there. And the team that won, quote 1-2 on the road against them is not necessarily the team that they're going to be taking to Illinois. Which, by the way, it's not Bloomington, Indiana; it's Bloomington, Illinois.
Yes.
Yeah. So I don't. It could go 7. Who knows? It depends a lot on what we just talked about. The special teams, goaltending, and all of that.
I'm going to keep with the tradition of what I've seen from the years since we've covered this team. Walleye in 4. They've swept every first round since we've started covering this team.
Yeah, I mean,
I think we're just going to keep with
before we move on from that, though, guys. I think the division is a lot better. I mean, you could see it.
Yeah,
the parity. I thought Cincinnati was going to get in, and they got edged out. And Kalamazoo I thought was a pretty good team too. So I mean, and they play these teams, all the same teams, so many times. So they're certainly familiar with Bloomington. And not to look ahead, but that Fort Wayne series would be another fun one. See them battle with the Comets over at the Coliseum and here at the Bank Tank.
Yeah, I completely agree with you.
Well, let's talk about the playoffs around the league real quick before we wrap up here. Obviously, we've talked about the Walleye and the Bison going at it, but Indy and Fort Wayne matching up in the other series in the Central there. Just what's your guys' thoughts, quick thoughts on that one?
Fort Wayne. I think Fort Wayne in a relatively short series. Indy struggles to score goals.
Yeah, I was just looking. Fort Wayne was 9-2-1 against them. So the Comets are no joke. I think this may be one of their better teams. Tatayev stands out to me on that. He's been good for them, but I don't want to look to answer your question. I think Fort Wayne wins that in a relatively quick fashion.
Go. And I won't need your predictions on the other ones, but we'll give the updates. And if you guys have thoughts about the series, just interrupt me and let me know. We'll head to the Mountain Division here. You got Kansas City facing off with Tahoe. And my other quick thought is that just looking at Tahoe being another expansion team in the playoffs this year, that's a really cool thing for the ECHL to have these new teams making playoffs already.
I got one thing on this. This is my upset pick of the first round.
No.
Is Tahoe over Kansas City.
No way. You got money? You want money on that?
I'm only saying this is the only reason I could see it happening. If they get any goaltending, that team can score goals. Like we've seen it, Mark, when they came here, they got the goaltending that weekend against Toledo. If that team can keep the puck out of their net, they can keep up with Kansas City, I think. They had like the second or third most goals in the entire league this year. If there was an upset to happen, I have a feeling this could be it. I don't foresee it happening, but I could see a world where it could.
Call your shot. I appreciate that. Kansas City was 6-1 against them this year, and Kansas City has put together a hell of a year. That Tato had just got Coach of the Year. Believe that was announced today. And they've got a former Walleye player, this Marcus Crawford, who a D-man. He led the ECHL in scoring and was named the defenseman of the year this year. And he's a really good player. I think Kansas City takes care of that in relatively short, quick fashion.
It'd be interesting to see which one of you two is right on that. I don't have an opinion. I have not watched either of those teams enough this year. The other matchup in that division, though, Allen and Idaho, that should be an interesting one. It's weird to see Allen back in the playoffs.
They had a brutal start and figured it out about a month and a half, 2 months in, and they caught fire, and now they got home ice in the first round. But yeah, that'll be an interesting series out west.
Allen used to be one of the perennial powerhouse teams, but you're right. It's been a while since they've been a contender, and the Walleye played Idaho not too many postseasons ago. And but Travis is right. I think Allen really got hot at the end of the season, so I imagine they'll take that series.
Then we'll head over to the north. You got Wheeling and Reading. That's going to be Wheeling. I don't think any of us disagree with that.
Scare of that breakdown.
Yeah.
I think Wheeling and Maine are kind of on a collision course to that second round. Maine's had a really good year.
Maine and Adirondack facing off is the other matchup. That's going to be an interesting one.
Yeah, Adirondack likes to play that heavy in-your-face style, lots of penalty minutes, and obviously if anybody remembers Luke Cavlin.
Yeah.
I think we all remember him way too well.
Sadly, I don't. I would assume he's on their playoff roster, but that's where he was for most of the year. And they also have another good goaltender. So something to keep an eye on in the north.
I think Adirondack had a pretty big 10-2-3 against them. So, yeah, I don't follow that as closely as the the other conference, obviously.
Well, speaking of goaltenders that can turn it on in the playoffs, we'll head to the South and talk about Florida and Savannah. Obviously, we know what Florida's capable of in the playoffs, but the Savannah, that's a fun matchup.
Yeah, another team with not a ton of years in the league making the playoffs. Obviously, Savannah there. It's kind of David and Goliath, I would say, going into that. I think Florida will take quick work of them, but I think the one in the South that everybody's going to kind of watch a little would be South Carolina and Atlanta. Two teams that really fought for second place all year. So, and we've seen what South Carolina can do, Mark, when they were down south. They whacked Toledo pretty good the one night, and then Toledo got them in the next night. But that's a good team too.
Yeah, Florida's the Everblades, as you know, they're now a perennial power. Obviously, the Walleye ran into them in the Kelly Cup Finals a couple years ago, and I think they've been in 11 straight times. So I think you're right there. They win there, and South Carolina will be a great series there.
Yeah, South Carolina, Atlanta being the last playoff matchup. That's going to be, you're talking about David and Goliath, but you have the Gladiators in here. They're going to go to battle, and this is going to be a series I think is going to go the distance. This is going to be a tough one. This might be one of the best actual matchups in the first round.
Yeah, South Carolina, Atlanta, I would agree with you. Probably one of the more evenly matched up teams as far as skill and just how they play. I'd say maybe Allen and Idaho and South Carolina and Atlanta probably match up the best as far as head-to-heads go for the series in the first round.
Yeah, just looking at the head-to-head, you guys are right. I mean, it was very, very evenly matched, but I see South Carolina emerging from that series.
Yeah, I don't doubt that either. Well, that wraps it up for the first round of the playoffs across the ECHL, and I think that wraps up all the thoughts we have today on this playoff preview. I know we're all excited to get back in the bank tank and have some playoff hockey being played. We know it's going to be absolute madhouse in that building when it's going on, and I hope the first-time players playing in that atmosphere are ready, and I hope the other team's not ready to experience what it's going to be like playing in Toledo. But before we wrap it up, Mark, thank you again for coming on the show. It's good to have you back on, and we always give our guests a chance to shout out where people can find their work, how do they follow you, and what you're working on right now.
Yeah, well, it's the playoffs for me too. It really I amp up too, along with which I enjoy. It's a Twitter. I'm at MonroeBlade. That's the best place to follow me on social media, and then ToledoBlade.com has actually have a full preview series preview up on that website now that kind of breaks down what we talked about here in maybe a little bit more detail. But yeah, I appreciate you guys having me on. I think you guys do a great job and really enjoy when you have the players on. And yeah, it's fun, and hopefully we can do it again soon, guys.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thanks, and what great work you provide every year down in Toledo. I mean, it's amazing to have a writer as good as you are in the coast. I don't think you find very many of them. So it's your work does not go unnoticed, my friend.
I'd really appreciate that, Travis. Thanks, man.
We'll make sure we put the link to that preview as well in the description of the episode here, so all you guys can go check it out. But that's it. That wraps it up. Before we go, we got to thank our sponsors of the show, DraftKings and Everything Hockey Clothing Company. When you're betting with DraftKings, use code THPN. And when you're shopping at everythinghockey.com, use code WEST to save a few bucks off your order. We also got to thank our lovely Patreon subscribers as well for all the love and support over at patreon.com/HockeytownWest podcast. Those are Jason C., Bex, All In GR, Bert Rito, Zach, Darren Schwartz, Peter Grell, Drew Schroeder, D-Boss is D-Boss, Tyler Ingalls, John in Florida, Elaine Grace, Griffin Not From GR, Derek Sleazer, Lori, Allen, and Michael Alsante. Thank you all for the love and support. We appreciate you guys so much. That is all we have. Everybody have a fantastic week. Next episode you'll get from us is our Grand Rapids Griffins playoff preview, once we hopefully know who the opponent's going to be here pretty quick, as this Milwaukee-Manitoba series is officially underway. And as we're recording, Milwaukee's actually leading 2-0, which is shocking all of us. But we'll have that episode for you guys early next week. But until then, as always, go Griffins, go Walleye, and we'll talk to y'all again soon.
Thank you for tuning in to the Hockeytown West podcast. Be sure to check us out on Twitter at HockeytownWPod, and your hosts, Nick at GR Hockey Guy, Brandon at Brandon GR Hockey, and Travis at Trav in T-Town.